So we are talking about some tips, tricks, and recommendations for new players. We're basing this mostly off of what me and Erica did to get into the hobby and what kind of helped us. I mean, obviously, this is everyone's gonna kind of get into this game a little bit different, but hopefully, some of our recommendations help people. Um, I know some of them I that we have on here. A lot of people don't know about, which I thought was very surprising to me, like AOS reminders. I'm surprised more people don't use that. And
Well,
then obviously we've got Cameron on here as a veteran of this game, and he can also provide some assistance with newer players as well. So that's what we're going to talk about. Um, any thoughts or anything, Erica or Cameron, about just new players in general?
we all come into the game eventually.
Yeah, fair
The hardest
point.
part is just to not give up.
Yep, yep. And we'll talk about some of the ways that you can really thrive on you know social aspects of the game to make you even a better player, right? So
Well, and I think with the seasons coming out for GHBs, I mean, everybody's always kind of on a learning curve trying to figure out the list they want to play, and Joel never knows what list he wants to play. So, I mean, there's
yeah,
always something to learn, always resources out there.
don't do what we do and buy every army. Don't do that. Not worth.
I don't
Um.
know what you're talking about. Having every army is great.
Oh, it is. This is not a cheap hobby. All right, let's get
No, it's fine.
into the next thing here. Okay, so Cameron, sit back for a second. Let me go through, and I think you know a little bit about this. I think we've talked about it, but if not, this will be news to you. But um, the way that me and Erica got into this hobby was mostly because of me playing this way back when in the fantasy days, where I played um, vampire accounts.
Okay, so at least you had good taste.
Yeah, oh, vampire accounts back then were awesome. They were cool models back then, and I was just so intrigued by it. Um, I actually liked building the models more than I played, though, believe it or not. But anyway, that was way back then. Back when I was a young teenager, and uh, got out of the hobby for a long time. Obviously, different priorities or whatnot. And I think the biggest thing that brought me back, and in turn brought Erica in, were two things. One, COVID, and I think for a lot of people, this being stuck at home, I think a lot of people, I think that was the biggest reason they got into it was because of COVID. And then number two was a Warhammer store basically right next door. Um, and
Which was bad news.
yeah, so the first time we saw it, I was like, "Is that really a Warhammer dedicated store?" Because when I played it way back then, they didn't. I didn't go to a dedicated Warhammer store, and so we checked in that, and then it was history from there. We ended up buying a Warcry. That's basically how we got into this. I wasn't too sure. Oh, hey James. Someone ban you. Don't tempt me. Uh, so we got into it via Warcry, and I wasn't quite sure how Erica was gonna take it. I know she liked board games, but this was kind of on a completely different scale. Um, I knew nothing about AOS. I knew nothing about any of that. Like I knew some of the armies from back from the fantasy days, but I didn't know much more other than that. So uh, we kind of tested the
Well,
waters on Warcry. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and I was like, okay, board game, that's fine. But I was doing these like dumb little paint by numbers things because COVID and
Oh yeah,
stuck at home and bored. And you're like, how about you paint some plastic instead? And so I was like, sure, I can paint some things. Why not? And then we started playing. And then, not that I'm competitive at all,
Yeah. We're
but
both
then we
super
just,
competitive.
started getting really competitive with each other and having a lot of fun. And then we started buying more things.
Yeah. And I think so. I definitely, and that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about is I definitely think, especially if you have a significant other or you have other friends that don't quite understand the tabletop aspect of things, I do recommend starting with a skirmish type game because they're quicker games and there's less rules, uh, and I think that helps just in general get new people into the game. Um, Cameron, as a veteran, what do you think about the skirmish type games?
I don't know why you call me a veteran. Technically, you've been playing longer than me.
What? Oh, you're
Yeah,
talking about just fantasy wise?
yeah, just
Playing well.
Warhammer.
Okay,
Playing
yeah.
well.
Let's not. Yeah, Cameron, you're a veteran. Get out of here.
Oh. I love the small types of games. It it comes into the same problem where you have to have people to play with.
Yeah.
And just when I was starting up and doing everything, no one really played it or anything like that. And about time I found people to play with. I think when I finally was starting to get people to start playing, I think like Necromunda came out,
Okay.
and so now everybody started playing that. And then I was like, I'm more of a fantasy guy, so I stayed fantasy, and so I just went into Age of Sigmar more.
Okay. Totally fair. I definitely, like I said, I definitely think that's the way a good way to start, and then you can start building more and more into the bigger games, right? The next little item I have on here is this is something that Erica can kind of relate to a little bit when she started picking what she wanted to play, right? Is play the rule of cool that you align with, right? I think the best part of this game is picking a faction or picking models that you enjoy, whether what they look like. I mean, I'll let Erica talk about her first true love, right? Dinosaurs riding dinosaurs. She was hooked on it. So, I mean, that being said, I do put a small caveat with doing rule of cool, right? I do think you do need to do a little bit of research on what you're getting into because there are circumstances where this game is ever changing and at some point the army you pick might not be very competitive, and if you're a very competitive person when you're getting into these skirmish type games, you might want to you just need to have that in your back pocket so you don't get the wrong impression, right? So I say definitely play a rule cool to a to an extent to where you do a little bit of research behind the scenes to make sure you know what you're getting into.
Oh, completely agree. Like one of my friends, Matt, his rule of cool was he wanted to play Slaanesh, and man, he got everything he could to play Slaanesh. I gave him all sorts of stuff with Slaanesh. I helped him build armies, did everything with that, but it just nothing we could do could make a winning game, and
Yeah.
it was going through and it was just disheartening. It's like no matter what, he wasn't able to play with his toys just because they were just so bad
Yeah.
and he didn't want to be forced to play a certain way.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
for me, one of the reasons I was drawn so much to Seraphon in the first place is because you could either go Thunder Lizard, which was, big monster smash, or you could go more into the magic realm. And speaking of magic, we had played
Mm.
a lot of Magic the Gathering. And so, with me having come from that, like, oh, well, I like that, and my deck was a mono red aggro. So, what relates to that? And I didn't want to play Iron Jaws and just run into things and smash them. I wanted a little more finesse.
Yep.
So I was like, what's going to give me that and also be fun to paint?
I mean, also dinosaurs riding dinosaurs, right?
Dinosaurs
Yes.
riding dinosaurs.
How are you gonna get any better than that?
I just heard the Jurassic Park theme in my brain and I was like, these need to be it. John
Yeah.
Williams is in my head.
Yeah.
There you go.
My first getting back into the hobby, my first army was Nurgle, and I don't know, just something about the gift of disease was just a fascinating thing to me, and I got really into the
We
lore
also started
behind
during
Nurgle.
COVID, so it was very apropos.
Yeah, I mean, fair point. Fair point.
See,
Um,
my rule of cool is very, very, very simple when I started this. And it's just that I love
dogs.
Daddy Death. No, that's what it was. It wasn't even Dog for a long time. It was Death Daddy. We got Nagash, and I was like, all right, now we got Magic Death Daddy. We got Archon, and then we got Bone Daddy, which was Catacross, and just all sorts. Like, oh man, death everywhere.
Catacross is still to this day one of my favorite models Games Workshop
Yeah,
makes.
he is Bone Daddy to me. It's
He is
just
so cool.
one day I will paint him. It won't be today.
We
But
have
one,
our OBR painted now. I need to get our painter on here to go through just some of his techniques and stuff. That'd be really fun. Uh, all right, and then the last little tidbit I have on here, and I wish we would have done this. When I get into games or any type of hobby, I kind of go ham. So we like jumped straight into it after playing a couple of skirmish games. I truly recommend that when you jump into the bigger AOS game, you get rid of all the bloat in the game, right? I would get rid of battle tactics. I would get rid of heroic actions. I'd get rid of a lot of this stuff and just play the game to see if this is something that, both parties enjoy, right? And I wish we would have done that a little bit more. We kind of jumped right into it and put all the rules in place. And I think that works for some people, but I think for most people, I would just recommend getting rid of all the bloat and slowly add that stuff in. Because you don't need it. It's that stuff's more for a competitive scene anyway. You can definitely play this game without that, without those things. So I definitely recommend that. Cameron, I don't know about you. I mean, you kind of think differently than other people. Like you're like
So
one step ahead of most people. So I don't
when
know how you think about it,
built
but
different.
yeah.
I've brought a lot of people into the hobby, um, and what I always do is one of the good things about having many, many different armies is I say, hey, look at all these armies. Which one do you want to play? And then they're like, oh, hey, most of the time they want to play Seraphon because lizard riding lizards. Um, and then from there, it's like, okay, go ahead and choose some models you want. We make a basic 1,000 point list. And then from there, it's like, all right, I give them just the War Scroll, and
Yeah.
that is it.
Yep.
And from there, I play a 1,000 point army, and it's just like, okay, let's go through step by step. We do 1,000 points, we play from there, and then the next game we do, after that, if they like it, all right, we're gonna do battle tactics. That's a good one to introduce.
Yeah.
And so it usually takes about 3 to 4 games, but I just slowly build them up, little rules by little rules,
Yep.
until we get to, all right, here's the actual full game.
Yep. Agreed. And James, I totally agree. Mystical
Another.
terrain is like last. That's like something.
Oh yeah.
There's people that don't even play with mystical terrain still to this day. Yeah, go ahead,
And
Ariel.
I
I
disagree
would.
with them.
I do as well.
I would also say if you don't have endless amounts of armies to check out from a friend when you're first starting, I think one of the things that I wish I would have done is built the models without the weapons to start with so that I could
Oh,
play.
yes. Good point.
Dumb me, skinks. Let's talk about skinks for a minute. Mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. I was like, oh, look, they come with all these little weapons and they're all different. Let me just make a variety. And I didn't realize that a unit needed to all have the same weapon. So I would also recommend until you know what you want to play weapon wise, and if you don't want to go through the tedious and painstaking process of magnetizing, just build them without the weapons and play a little bit, and then you can finish them off once you decide what you like. If it's an army that you're investing a lot of money in and you want to go all in with one particular army. And
100%.
again, that's if you don't have a buddy to borrow an army from or something like that, that would be a cost-effective way to save money in the long run. Because
Yep.
we definitely have more skinks that I need to build because I done screwed that up on
Yeah,
I think
no,
that's just
yeah.
skinks in general.
Everyone
Well,
loves
you
skinks,
know,
right? That's no. I know if Jared was here right now, I'd be like, yeah, everyone loves skinks, but no, no. I'm over them. Um, anything else for just? I mean, Cameron, I don't know. How long have you been playing this game? I don't even know if we've had this conversation.
I actually figured it out right before the show. I've been playing for 5 years.
Okay, man, five
Roughly,
years. That
yeah,
you are.
roughly middle 2018.
So what made you get into it?
Um, I was working a job that had me have afternoons off. Pretty much, I worked early in the morning, and once it got around like 2 to 3 o'clock, I just had nothing to do. And also, it was part of a school job, and so I had summers off to do whatever I wanted. And I decided, hey, look at that Warhammer store over there,
Yeah,
and I would spend pretty much the entire summer because my wife also worked the exact hours I was off, and so I would spend like 4 to 6 hours just sitting around building and painting and then playing whatever I can because I was just didn't have anything else to do. And
okay.
so I just started learning and then playing in that area, and eventually I just started playing whenever I could there, and here I am, eventually spreading out, trying to find new players, making my own games at home,
Yep.
and going out to tournaments.
I will say also, Cameron is a very big. He was a very big player of chess, and I think that helps to his strengths of how decent he is at this game. He's always one step ahead. He's always one step ahead of you. So I think,
5 steps ahead. Let's
yeah,
be real.
yeah.
Oh, another thing about the origin story is I used to play a game called HeroClix.
Oh,
For I
hero
think it was
clicks. Yeah.
yeah, and from there I decided to bail out of that hobby after I thought it was just getting too toxic to play, and no one around me played the game because this was back when I was in college, and then I came out of college and now nobody played the game. And then I needed another hobby to fill up my time, and Warhammer's the one that got in.
Got it. Okay. I still need to. I don't know if I want to play HeroClix or if I want to do MCP. I still think I'm interested in MCP.
Uh,
We're
HeroClix
gonna
is simpler, and I have all the stuff. I still have models.
we're gonna get Justin on here to talk about MCP. Justin and his wife at some point.
Oh, I want to play MCP so bad.
All right, let's go into some tools that both me and Erica use. To help us get through this game a little better. I don't know if we want to do this one at a time and I show them. Do we want to do that, or do we want to do it at the end of talking about them?
Let's do it at the end.
Okay. So the very first thing is, and I got these websites up on another screen, and we'll go through them as soon as we get kind of through these. But
When
uh,
we post on YouTube, we'll also put links in the chat
yes,
or
yeah,
in the description.
yep, agreed. Uh, One of the biggest, and in my opinion, one of the best tools for this game, and I'm surprised most there aren't more people that use this, and I think it's I don't know what the reason is, to be honest. I know, Cameron, you're good at learning your army and you're good at remembering everything, but for a lot of us, there's so many rules for this giant game called Age of Sigmar that I really do feel that AOS Reminders is one of the best tools for this game. And while
So,
it's not completely accurate sometimes, it is fantastic from a rule perspective.
describe AOS reminders to me because I do not use AOS reminders. I've
So
never
a
done it before.
so AOS Reminders, and I don't even know how we found. I think I was searching online for just tools or whatever for this game to kind of help minimize the time during rounds. I think is how I got through this.
Hmm.
Uh, but essentially, it's a website where you go to. You pick your faction. You put in all the units you want to play. You put in your traits you're going to use, your artifacts, and it spits out a document that you can print out. And it goes through each phase of the game and how your war scrolls interact with that phase, as well as like the current season. They'll have current season rules in there. They'll have all the spells that you could pick. I just think it's a great tool for new players, and I still use it. I went to LVO this year, and I still used it. I think it's a fantastic tool to use to better learn your army. Now, I will say it can be quite, depending on the army you play. Like if you play Skaven or if you play Lumineth, there's so many rules that they have, right? So you can have 6 pages of AOS reminders, and that can get daunting, right? Even for a new player.
Yeah.
So
as you learn your
Yes,
army,
exactly.
you can remove the things
Exactly.
that you have memorized.
Correct.
So as you get more comfortable with your army, you just hide the pieces of the AOS reminders that you don't want to see anymore.
Hmm.
And then it shortens it, and you're really only using the things that you're like, oh man, I need to remember that. But you don't want to flip through a bunch of war scrolls or the book to go and be like, oh, what spells does this thing know? It just throws it all into that phase.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
And I love it. Cameron, pop quiz.
Mhm.
What's the number one thing players forget?
All the rules.
Well, okay. But there's one rule. There's one rule in
Everything.
specific
Let's
that
see.
I'll say it's close to the combat phase. There's one rule in specific that every single game I play, almost every single time,
Oh, is it Stomp? Is it?
it's Monstrous Rampage.
Monstrous actions.
Everybody
All-
always forgets it. Yeah.
Almost every single time, people will forget Monstrous Rampages, and I have to say,
Okay, I've put it in my AOS reminders and I've still forgotten it.
I will say I'm really good about remembering it, and I think the biggest reason I'm good about remembering it is because of AOS reminders, because I have that rule on there always, so I don't forget them. So I definitely recommend, and we'll go through a quick little AOS reminders when we're done talking about these, so you kind of get the feel of what it looks like. But it's free. It doesn't cost anything. You can print it out, and we use it all the time. The amount of pages we've wasted on AOS reminders is incredible. So I honestly, especially if you're getting into a new army, I definitely recommend it. It helps you learn all the rules. So
Yeah, especially new armies, because
Yeah.
that's the biggest hurdle between like any new army, anything that you play is just being able to remember that. Oh, hey, I can do that.
yep. Anything last on AOS reminders, Erica? Anything else you got on that?
I think it's also a really good way to compare and contrast armies before you actually hit print and play.
Okay.
Because you can go through and build since we're talking so much about dinosaurs riding dinosaurs, you can build a Thunder Lizard list, and then you can build like doing a coalesced list and have it be like back to back. Okay, go through what would you rather do,
Yeah.
and kind of decide from there. So speaking of rats, I was going to maybe take rats to LVO.
Hmm.
Way too many freaking AOS reminders. That was a hot mess, and I like printed it, and I was like, well, this isn't going to go well. And I played half a game, and I was like, nope, next army, moving on. So yeah, it's a really good way to get to know exactly how much is in each phase. Is it combat heavy, or is it magic heavy? Like how much are you doing in the hero phase?
Yeah.
How much do you have to remember in the combat phase, and where the army is going to be more play heavy? It's a good way to visualize that and see that all in one spot.
Yep. KO is another example of the shooting phase. It's going to be a lot more
Oh
rules than anyone
gosh,
else.
shooting
Yep.
for days.
Yep. But it's a great tool. Moving on to Wikipedia. I think Erica uses this more than I do. I will say it's a great resource. I just recommend people make sure that it's updated, because there's a lot of cases where it's not updated as soon as I would like it to be.
There's a
use it-
delay for sure.
I will say I do use it. It's a great utility because it doesn't go over just the army. It'll go over Path to Glory rules. It'll go over holistic view of the army rather than just the base AOS game. So like you're not gonna get Age of like the AOS reminders. You're not gonna get Path to Glory rules in that, right? You're only gonna get the base game. Whereas Wikipedia, you can use that for a multitude of scenarios. So I definitely recommend that, especially if you're a new player and you don't want to go dive into a new battle tome and go buy a bunch of stuff. I definitely recommend Wikipedia. But Eric,
Yeah,
I'll
well,
let
and
you.
now that
Yeah, I'll let you go
that
on this
now
one.
that you need the book to have the code to plug it into the app, this is a really good way to explore armies as you want to like dive into war scrolls and dive into rules and dive into all of the, what battle tactics are available for this specific army. Like all of that stuff is available on there. I will say it does take a little while to update sometimes. It's not always instantaneous. Like sometimes AOS Reminders is updated before the actual book is in print. It's just been released in a box and it's already updated. So it does take a little bit longer. But even for me, like talking about cards versus printed war scrolls, kind of going into that a little bit too, I love being able to print the war scrolls because then I take all my notes. And that's, sorry, I'm an educator. But I like to mark the text and add in those annotations and add stuff right on the war scroll. So as I'm looking at buffing, like what buffs do things have, it's written there in my printed war scroll, so I'm not destroying a book. And I can print those without having to own a book,
So
which can also get very expensive.
Wahapedia is my go-to besides the app. Um,
Yep.
mostly for the reason why, because you need to buy the book in order to get the app. But whenever I'm at a tournament or whenever I'm uh, like looking at a list that I'm interested in or that I know I'm going to be facing at, I usually either go immediately to the app or I immediately go to Wahapedia just for that quick. It takes about 30 seconds. Find out what this rule is, learn what it is, learn what the exact wording is. Does my opponent not know exactly what the wording is, and he's taken forever to bring out his book and look at everything? Boom, Wahapedia. I can find it real quick.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, it's great. Easy to use too. Really
Hmm.
easy to navigate.
Well, if you're a psychopath like me, you will literally create a magic card for every war scroll, which is what I have. So Scragra on the screen right now is something that I've created. I've created magic cards for every war scroll, and
Okay,
I know
I
it.
am jealous. I want this.
From a magic player,
We can
right?
print you a set for
Yeah,
pretty much every army.
I have pretty much all of them, and I've updated as much as I can. Uh, I think this is for me the best way to remember a war scroll real quick because I can look at this, I know exactly how to read it, I know what abilities are on it, and I can go to it real quickly. I don't have to look. I don't have to go through a book. I don't have to go through Wikipedia. It's boom right there. Now there are downsides to this, right? Obviously, you need to make sure that one, it's updated because when a new book comes out, you have to update all these cards and print them again, which is a pain. And as well as you need to make sure that you're accurate in your typing, right? There was a Kragnos War scroll that I missed, where I where it was a worse statistic on the card than what it truly was, right? And I think it was like I was on threes and threes instead of threes and twos. So you need to make sure that you are actually not fat fingering anything, but I've done a pretty good job of getting all these cards in place to where I put them in card sleeves. I take them with me, and I it's real easy to take. They're not massive, and it's real easy to look at the war scroll and use them. So I definitely, if you're a psychopath like me and you want to use magic cards, I also think they look awesome. I get
Yeah.
comments on them all the time, all the time. Anytime I bring them to the table, people are always like, "That's a really nifty way to look at war scrolls," and I agree. I think this is a cool way to do it. So
The reason why I like the cards is because it solves my biggest downside whenever I'm looking at something, which is like 80% of the time whenever I'm looking at a unit and trying to remember something, 80% of the time it is what is their attack characteristic?
yep,
Is it on a 3? Is it on a 4? How many
yep,
attacks is that? Do they have Ren? And so now I need to bring up my phone, look up the app, go all the way through there. Okay, that's what it was. Put it away. Oh, wait, what did the horses do? Okay, alright, now we need to go back in. If I have that card, I can go, boom, I play my Blood Knights in attack mode, and then they do this.
Yeah, Cameron, if you ever need to borrow any of these cards, you let me know. I got you. I've printed them all out, so for the most part,
Borrow? Heck, we can make him a set.
that's true.
I'm gonna need some for Soul Blight, because
You got it. I got you. I got you.
sweet.
We have the power to print.
Yes.
It's a thing.
Next thing I have on here is tokens. So this is interesting, and I think I'm gonna pull a Vince Ventrella here from Warhammer Weekly, and I think to this day I still think the best tokens to have aren't even really tokens. It is and again we'll bring this up on the screen because I have it. Is a magnetic dry erase roll of just a dry erase magnetic roll of whatever. I don't. It's not tape, but whatever that is. It's just there's little It's a roll of magnets basically, like super small, and I think that is the best token to have because you literally can write anything on those, and then they're dry erase, so you can just wipe them off. And I think it's real easy. Like if I need Mystic Shield and I cast it, I can do MS. Put the little magnetic strip. That's what I was looking for. Magnetic strip next to the model. Boom! I know it. Right. You don't have to buy all of these tokens. You don't have to buy all out attack. You don't have to buy like all these tokens that you get on Etsy. Now you could do that if you wanted to, but I think the magnetic strip is a cheap, easy way to do it, and I definitely recommend going that route.
I will
Also,
say I was using the magnetic strips a lot when we were playing, but then when we went to LVO, I was like, okay, here are the exact tokens I need. I need these buffs on these characters,
okay.
and I like portioned them out for LVO specifically. So when I set up my army, I could automatically do that. Now, was it written on my war scroll? Yes. But did I want to forget it? No. So I put it next to the unit, and that was also helpful for my opponent to be able to see with those
That's fair.
tokens what was buffed. So I did eventually go back to the tokens, but when you're just learning and like, yeah, it's just really easy to scribble on a piece of whiteboard and then you just wipe it off with the call it a day.
I don't use the whiteboard. I use specialized token for specific things, and then I use generic tokens for the things that are like what I do is for like Mystic Shield or a +1 to save. Let's see, we have Mystic Shield, All Out Defense, and Best Day Ever. I have like a little tiny little red gem crystal, and I put next to the unit. All right, that shows that he has a +1 to save. And every single crystal is another +1 to save.
Okay.
Did I put a debuff on someone? I have a little tiny skull that I put next to someone. Does it say what the debuff is? No, but I know that he's debuffed.
Speaking of which, if you end up getting into like a skirmish battle like Warcry, they come with a ton of tokens. And
Those
you
are
can.
mostly the tokens I use.
Yep, exactly. I was just because I know the tokens you use, and I was just gonna. I just
As
remember.
long as your dog doesn't eat them.
Yeah, I was gonna say before you spoke up, Eric. I was like, it's also another thing that your dog doesn't eat, because we have definitely had our dog eat all of her
Eat
tokens.
cardboard.
Yes, it
Mhm.
was miserable, but yeah. So I think that's the idea on tokens. There's a lot of different ways to do it. The next thing is obviously uh, everyone uses it, right? The app and War Scroll Builder. I think those are two things that are a must, especially if you're going into a competitive scene. Most TOs are going to recommend that you use War Scroll Builder because it's kind of a all-encompassing, easy to look at War Scroll Builder. And then obviously you're going to use the app for all of your lists that you build and whatnot. So
Yep. And it's a reputable source. Some people require it.
yep,
If your opponent doesn't believe that their guy has a rule that they do, you just go ahead, put on your own phone, and say, "Here you go," and
yep,
you show it to them.
yep.
And if they deny you, then you just show, "No, this is the AOS app."
Yep.
Sorry, this is what it is.
Yep. Most people think that that's like the 100%. That's the Bible, right? Anything on that,
I
Erica?
will say though, one of the downsides with the app, um, so going back and forth between using a phone and when we've got a tablet, and if I build an army using the app on my phone, it's not going to show up on my
Yeah.
tablet.
Yep.
So you've got to go and build it again. So I will say that is one downside is you don't have the ability to just automatically have your armies that you've built on any device when you log in. It is per device and that it's a small inconvenience, but it is still something that I think could be
Still an
improved.
inconvenience.
Yeah. Because it would be nice to not have to build it twice if I'm not sure if I'm going to use my phone or a tablet. So, just saying, it is a downside.
I saw the Mystic Bolt Arcane Shields comment. I'll never get over that. All right, moving on. Taking notes. This is something that I do a little bit with like I'll build my AOS reminders and take notes on it. I think something that was useful is when I went to my first GT. I did make notes of every match that I played, and I do think it's good to look back to understand the mistakes and the ways that you can play better for that. So I do think taking notes and taking ideas of how you can play better when you lose a match is always good. I mean, this game is all about learning from your mistakes, right? Hashtag Turtle Incident from 2022. If Cole ever watches this. So I mean, it's always good learning from your mistakes, and I definitely think that you should do that. I think Erica, being an educator that she is, I think she goes a little ham on the notes, but I'll let her go into
Hey,
that.
I make notes on my war scroll, and then I'll make notes on the AOS reminders. I also went through and I built my own AOS reminders for LVO because I wanted to have like charts of things in specific spots. So going through like adding in pieces of the war scrolls, so I really didn't need to look at my war scroll notes. I could just flip through my AOS reminders and okay, here's all of their bravery when we get to the battle shock. So I just had a little chart of every single one of my units and what their bravery was. So I didn't have to look at it anywhere else. So stuff like that, I like notes. But I'm not one of them that's going to sit there during a match and like take notes. Oh, my opponent just did this. Oh, I just did this. Oh, don't do this next time. So there is something to be said for people who take notes in game to learn how to play their army against other armies specifically.
I don't personally take notes, but I don't mind other people taking notes unless it starts, especially at a tournament when we have time. If taking notes starts hindering the game at some point, then you need to find a better way to do it.
100%, and that kind of gets into
Agreed.
our next item, which is timing your games.
Please, Joel, tell me.
Yeah, I know. I'm the worst about this. This has been a struggle for me because I'm one of those people that I have to do everything. I'm always thinking about it.
Slowly, yes.
Yes, I will agree. I am a slow player. I have gotten a lot better, and when I know my army, I'm pretty quick about it. It's when I don't know the army and I'm trying to get through it is when it's the worst for me. I the things that have helped Erica and I has been timing our games. When you start to get into a competitive scene, you only have 2.5 hours for a 2K game most of the time, right? So you've got to get through those real quick. And I have been asked to do chess clocks, right? And it's stressful. And we'll get to Cameron's doubles tournament because I know that was even worse. But I definitely recommend as you pick an army and you start getting better at it and you want to go into more of a competitive scene, I strongly recommend that you time your games to better help know where you're struggling and what phase to become quicker. And I've gotten a lot better at it. I don't think not once at LVO did I not finish a game. Like, never once did we come to the end. So I definitely think I've gotten better at it, but it is a struggle for newer players to get through this. And obviously, if you're playing a home game, don't worry about this. Or if you're playing a new game, don't worry about this. There's been many times Eric and I have left a game overnight where we're like on turn 3, right? And we haven't finished the game, and that's fine. But when you start getting onto a competitive scene, you got to take it a little bit more seriously on the timing for your games. Does anyone have any? Cameron, Erica, you got anything else on the timing? I know I'm the worst at this.
Just it is a skill that needs to be learned, and it's mostly goes back to just knowing what your rules are. And because the thing that will take the longest is going back and figure out, oh, what was that thing that I could do again, and then spending 5 minutes on that one thing. And that's 5 minutes, but it might not seem like a lot, but do that 10 times, and you've already wasted 50 minutes of the of not only your but your opponent's game as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think practicing the army is big, but also having the right tools in front of you. So if you know that just flipping through cards real quick is going to be what helps you
Yep.
with your saves, your wounds, your attacks, whatever you might need to just quick reference. If you need those quick references for your entire army, put them in front of you, even
Yeah.
if it's just a little chart that you print out, so that you're not constantly looking through war scrolls or fiddling through the app, because those little moments take time. So having the right things in front of you is important, and that gives you the opportunity to change armies a little bit more when you figure out what system works for you in terms of having those resources in front of you.
100%.
And I've never actually played. Technically, I've never actually played a tournament chess clock match. Um,
You mean I got chess clocked before you did, Cameron?
Technically, yes, you did.
That doesn't surprise me. Doesn't
I'm
surprise me.
disappointed.
But however, I have practiced with chess clocks. As you said, there was a team tournament where it was 3 people on my team versus 3 people on my opponent's team. Each of us had individual games, and it was only 1250 points per player. So it was only 1250 versus 1250. However, it was an hour and 20 minutes
Oof,
was
that's quick.
was how much time you had to play the game. And the more I thought about that, I was like, wow, that is extremely fast, even for the lesser points. So I had all of my teammates before going in, like, hey, do not be the reason why the games don't go through. And if someone's going to chess clock you, this is the place that they will do it for you. And so we just had practice games. Like, all right, let's practice 500 points of your army. Will give us 30 minutes each. Then we went to 750. Then we went to 1,000. And we slowly increased things, and it helps a lot. Surprisingly, like being able to quickly think on your feet and being able to, especially on the stress meters, being able to learn what your army does. I was like, all right, I need to know what this does. So let's go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that too is when you get to a competitive scene, um, you're gonna know. You should know your army by then. You shouldn't be taking something that's new. I think that's my biggest issue is that I like to switch armies all the time. So I definitely recommend when you're going to a competitive scene, play an army that you're comfortable with and you know the rules, because your time will go down quite a bit.
Or on the opposite way, play as many armies as you can so you know all the rules.
Okay, well, great. That's your
That would
your
be great if the
strategy.
GHB didn't change all the time.
Also
Fair enough.
true. All right, so let's just go real quickly since we're at the bottom of this slide. Let's just go real quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just want to show you guys kind of what we're talking about with some of these. So we'll go here. I think you guys can see. Is that good? So this is an example of AOS reminders. It's just aosreminders.com, right? And it's real simple. You put in your list all the stuff that's in here. You can put grand strategies, triumphs, all of that, and it just populates all the rules down here, right? And like what Erica was saying is, if you know a rule, right? Like if you know the loon boss has a ward of 6, and you don't need that, you hide it, and boom, you're done, right? It's still so surprising to me that more people don't use this. I mean, it gives you all of your battle tactics. It gives you all kinds of stuff in here, right? And you can customize this. Like, if you wanted to go like crazy, right? You can even move this stuff, right? Like, let's say you get to the hero phase and you want to make sure your heroic action is before your battle tactic. You can drag this and move it up, right? It's a great tool, and I definitely recommend using this from a new player perspective.
Yeah, I definitely see new players using this, and the ones that I do see it, they definitely begin to learn their army better.
Yeah. Another thing on here is, this is what we talked about. This is Wahapedia. The first thing I would check when you get to a Wahapedia page is the books and when the last update was. So this was just recently updated with the Gloomspite Gets book. So it's got all of this. And the one thing that I used most of this is the Path to Glory section, right? Because it's got all of the Path to Glory rules on here, and it's fantastic for that. So I definitely recommend this. Erica uses this a lot. What she will do is, I mean, you can talk about it, Erica. Where am I going?
Just go to the top left where it says War Scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're all there.
And she'll print these out. Hers look like this, right? This is what she does. And she'll make notes to this.
So bad.
I
But
love
yeah,
your notes.
I write all over them. Sometimes I'll color code them. These I just took pictures of real quick, but I'll color code them. But then it depends on like what subfaction you choose. So when I was playing Calibron and then I switched to Hagnar, I went through and I made adjustments based on what my subfaction was so that I knew what I was doing. And when certain things applied, depending on who was my general or, you know, the distance between things, it was just really nice to be able to put some of that on the War Scroll so I didn't have to reference the list of things in AOS reminders. It was there when I was looking at what my wounds were, what my saves were, all that kind of stuff.
The next thing on here is, this is what we bought for, or at least I use this very, very often. It's just, this is what it is. It's a dry erase roll of magnetic strip, and you just cut these in little tiny pieces, and you can just write on them and put stuff next to it. It's a very cheap option instead of buying like custom tokens and stuff, which you can still do. I mean, if you're into that, go for it, right? But this is a real easy one for me, and it's not army specific, right? So I can write anything I want on here. This is the War Scroll Builder. This is kind of what most TOs recommend for building your list. This is updated quite frequently for the new GHBs and all of that stuff. So this is kind of like what most TOs recommend when you submit a list. So that's it for that slide. So, anything else on that front that you guys want to go over before we go to the next slide? All right, so we'll go on then. All right, tips and tricks. So this is kind of just generic. This is pretty generic. Definitely some things that I recommend players do. I know tournaments sound scary, and boy, the first tournament that me and Erica signed up for, we were a nervous wreck. It was miserable. But after you do it, and we've gone to so many tournaments now that it's just fun. I think people get to, and don't get me wrong, me and Erica are extremely competitive. But I think going to these tournaments and playing with other people and losing, and even losing, right? I think losing is a big opportunity to learn from.
Which
And
we do a lot.
yeah, well, especially when you play against Cameron. Uh, but definitely think that everyone needs to experience the tournaments. I know there's a lot of anxiety there, and I understand that completely. But at the end of the day, most of the players that you play against are extremely cool and just they're there to have a good time most of it. I mean, until you're getting into the top 8 at like LVO, that's when things kind of get kind of hectic. But at that point, you're already there, right? Day 2 of LVO and you have one loss on you, you're not getting the top 8. So you're just chilling and you're just having a good time, and that's definitely something that I recommend to most players. Anything on that front between you two?
I mean,
Uh,
I think one of the scariest things about starting a tournament was, oh my gosh, I have to remember all of these things. But it's, I mean, you have the right tips and the right tools and the right resources in front of you, and it's not that bad. And if you're going for something that's not like times, like our first tournament was with the store. So it was over time, you were playing, it was more of a campaign than it was a tournament, and that was a really good way to get a lot of casual games in that built up the point values over time. So it wasn't like you were starting your very first, tournament with 2000 points of an army you've barely played. It was okay, start with 750, and then you build up from there to 1000, and then you build up to 1500, and then eventually you get to 2K, and you're playing with a relatively small community.
Yeah.
I would say there's not all that many people that play the game now that we've been to a different stores in the area and done different 1 day, 2 day tournaments. It's kind of the same crowd over and over again. Occasionally I get somebody new, but it's such a good community of people to learn from. I mean, some of the best learning experiences I've had, besides of course playing anybody in our House of Hobbies crew, and say like Colt, like holy smokes, playing Colt is such a good learning experience. Rick, James, Justin, just really amazing players to play against who you're going to be able to learn from no matter what the outcome of the game is. And then turning around and being able to give that to other people once you get into the game more. Like I've played a couple of newbies and I'm like, all right, nah, wait, we're good. Don't worry about terrain rules. Let's do whatever you need to do. We're gonna have a good game, and just being able to give that back. So it's a cycle when you get into that community.
Yep. I definitely second that. That as you go to more tournaments, you learn more of the community that you're playing with, and you just kind of create a new social group of friends that you know, win or lose, it's a fun game, right?
Finding people, meeting people, and then just eventually it grows and grows and grows.
Mm-hmm. And I think that gets to the next two topics really is to try to find a club or group that you can associate yourself with to play games weekly. It helps build your knowledge base because you're now playing against multiple armies multiple times, and it makes you learn each type of army because that's a learning curve in this game. Is there's so many factions that you have to learn, right? And they're so unique and different that if you can find a club or a group that you can play with on a regular basis, it helps you learn the game more and grows your social crowd a little bit more as well. And that's kind of what we've done with House of Hobbies. So I definitely recommend trying to do that if you are enjoying this game, right?
And it is tough. It has taken me years in order to gather the people around me, but eventually it has happened.
Yeah.
You've collected them.
I've collected them.
And
But we met each other because we were playing a campaign with a store. And then we started seeing each other more. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, here's the local shout out, Tabletop Wargamer in Goodyear. But okay, there's a tournament at the store. Post it on the Discord. Who's showing up, and then we have a bunch of people from our crew sign up, and it's been a really cool opportunity to figure out who all is going to be where, and get people out to go and play at those local events.
Yep. And I think that kind of goes into the next thing with if you find a clever group, it's good to do a campaign, right? One of the best ways to learn an army is to start small and do some sort of campaign like Path to Glory or something similar to that. Warcry is another one. Well, sort of.
An escalation game or a Path
Yes,
to Glory game is always good.
Yep. And that's what we're currently doing right now. I need to catch up on some games, but definitely, I know I'm behind. Hey, you owe me some games, Erica. So I definitely recommend doing some campaign games because it definitely helps you learn an army. Right now, I'm learning Night Hunt a little bit more, so that's fun. So definitely recommend that. The next tool, I think Cameron, you use this. I know Erica doesn't.
Which one?
But Tabletop Simulator.
I own it. I have never played Warhammer on it.
Really? So me and Matt have played a game before you have.
Yep. I
Wow.
have never played a game on it.
So I recommend Tabletop Simulator. Maybe that's a completely different video in its own right. But it is a great tool to use, and that's the picture that I have on there. It's a PC game where you have to download. It takes a little finagling to get it set up completely, right? But there are users on there that build out new GHB maps and all the rules and the terrain placement and all of that, and you can test your army against other people online. I don't recommend this as a different aspect of not playing in person. I still think playing in person is much more beneficial, but I do use this time and again for testing deployment zones, testing certain GHBs and where the objectives are and stuff like that to kind of fine tune a little bit more of my strategy with the army I'm playing. So I definitely recommend it on that.
You've even used it to test two armies and figure out which one you want to play.
Correct.
So
Yep.
you'll play both armies at once against each other and be like, which one's more fun?
Yep. I mean, you can use it in multiple ways. You can get other people to get on there and play an army against yours. I definitely think it's a useful tool. It's good if you can't get to a store or something and you want to play someone on the weekdays or something like that. It's a great tool to use. I definitely use it. I used it more as a newer player than I am now because now I'm more social and getting out. I've got that
Now I
club
force
in
them to
group.
come over every
Yeah,
Thursday.
exactly. That's basically it. Next thing is BCP. I think that's a great tool. It is a subscription base if you want to look at tournament lists, so you do have to pay for it. But it is nice to see what is in the meta, what's winning, what lists are good. It helps you fine tune maybe something you're not thinking about. So I definitely recommend BCP if you are really into the competitive scene and you want to see more of the meta lists and what's kind of at the top. So I definitely recommend BCP. I think maybe out of this group, I'm the only one that is paying for BCP, right?
Yeah, I only use it for tournaments that require it.
Yeah. It's also something that you'll use quite a bit when you do start going to tournaments. It's kind of the must-have when you submit lists and whatnot. And then the last two kind of resources I use very often is Facebook and Discord. I'm probably on most of the Facebook pages for Warhammer. I ask questions on there as well as I've bought a
Buy
ton of.
armies.
Yep, I bought a ton of armies on there. It's a good resource to buy that type of stuff.
I don't use Facebook, but I do Discord a lot.
Yes, Discord's another good one. I'm on the Season of War Discord page. I'm on the Skyport Discord page, Stratagoy Discord page. It's another good
I think
resource.
on every Discord I am not on.
Oh, really? I know AOS Coach has one. There's a ton of them, and I think
I'm
it's
on the AOS coach one.
I think there's great resources there. You can ask questions on there and get many replies. I mean, it's been very friendly, so I definitely recommend the Discord pages. No, James, I disagree. Arizona Facebook page is not number one. Number one is House of Hobbies. Okay, so let's just get that out of the way right now. Any other comments on that?
Nah, I think you got it.
And I'll just quickly show. This is what tabletop kind of looks like, right? I showed you that picture. You can build your army and put it together. It does take a little bit of, like, this is a good example of a top down, right? This is a great way to kind of go through new GHBs and deployments and stuff like that. I think it's very useful. This is BCP, so you can search for events and stuff. I think it's great. This is like the only thing we use really for searching for local events in our area, right?
I just get all my events from everybody else.
Okay, well, I use this, and then I post them, and then Cameron joins.
Yep,
And then he joins them, and then he beats everyone, and then we're good. So we will go to.
So if you just don't want me to join a game, just don't tell me that there's a tournament.
Right. The last thing that I want to go through is for new players is some of the social media that I have found useful. And everyone, this is going to be very subjective to everyone, right? Like some people are going to like this, some people aren't. The ones that I definitely recommend. AOS Coach has some great resources. I watch Warhammer Weekly with Vince, Tom, and Tyler all the time. Oh, we lost Erica. What happened, Erica?
The one that
There
the
we
one
go.
that I
She's back.
out of everything here, the one that I go through for mostly looking at like what is the new stuff coming from the new book is I do AOS Coach.
Yeah,
Just he does
AOS
a very
Coach is great. Yeah.
he does a very concise way of showing, all right, these are all the changes, boom.
Yeah.
And the best thing is on YouTube, you can very easily change and go to like what I want to look at, and it's all right there.
Yeah.
And I don't have to squint and look at people's like, all right, I have to squint at the screen and see their tiny picture of what the war scroll is and try to guess if I'm doing it right, and then have to buy glasses and find out I'm blind.
Agreed. I do think Season of War has the best battle reports in the business. I really like them. They're concise. They're competitive. They are great, and they're pretty funny at some points. So Jordan and that team over there are doing a great job with battle reports. I definitely recommend Season of War. Monument Hobbies. I got to shout out Jason and all of the artistic abilities that his group does. I've known Jason for a long time. If you aren't using Monument Hobby Paint, I recommend it. It's some of the best paint in the industry, so definitely go there. And then if you're into the lore, 2+ Tough. I don't think there's anyone that does better lore than 2+ Tough.
Yeah, I agree. I get all of my fun lore stuff from him because
Yeah,
he does
he's
great,
fantastic.
concise stuff for it.
Yep, he is absolutely fantastic. So definitely recommend that from a lore perspective. Erica, anything on this?
No, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff out there. I also want to give a shout out to Partners at War. I think that
Oh, yes.
that for me at least, I like the educator perspective. And I think the way that they present information is really logical from a learner's perspective. So if you're looking to learn, they're also pretty good.
Yeah.
Another one is as James puts.
Yep.
Another one is the Honest Wargamer with Slapchop.
Yep.
Just a video being able to do an easy way of being able to paint your models, and they give a lot of information on the competitive scene
Yep.
on
Yep.
Week
Yeah, and
One.
that's nice too if you're one that's more into, okay, well, I want to play this, but I don't want to paint this.
Right.
So getting it tabletop ready is a very different journey than getting it, ready for some sort of painting competition or anything
Oh
like
no,
that. So
my,
Just
my,
don't
my
tell.
friend George got it down pat. You just spray it gray. You slap some orange here. You slap some green there. Boom, 3 colors, tabletop ready.
Just don't tell Jason that from Monument. He'll be like, I need to paint that. All right. So that's that. I think that's about what we got. Um. So some of the summaries I have for this is, at the end of the day, right? This game that we all enjoy playing is a social game, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway for this is get out and play with your local store. Get out and play at local tournaments. Go to LVO. There's so many good experiences that you have by going out and doing the local stuff. I definitely recommend it, and I know there's some anxiety for a lot of players out there because there's a lot of competitive players, but for the most part, I've had one or two bad games in the last 2 years, and a lot of the time it's just because of something stupid that I did. So I definitely recommend just going out and having fun. It's a very social aspect to the game, and that's the number one reason why I like playing this. So there's that. I will say there's tons of resources online. I mean, you name it. Whether you want, and this kind of goes on the next thing, whether you want to play, whether you want to build and kit bash, whether you want to paint, or if you're just into the lore, um, there's so many aspects of this game that you can get into that other players are just as dedicated to that as you are. So that's kind of the summary for me. I don't know if you guys have any kind of summaries that you guys are gonna kind of sum up kind of your experience with AOS, but that's kind of mine.
Go out, have fun, meet new people, and then slowly convert all of your friends from playing 40k to AOS.
I will say, as much as I love some of the 40k models,
Or from chess, yes.
I just AOS has just been an absolute awesome experience. So
Hey, I converted my friend who was a lifetime 40k player, like playing it since he was like 10 years old, and I got him to start playing AOS, and now he plays more AOS than 40k. So,
who is it? Is that George?
Zach,
Oh, Zach. Okay, yep.
and technically George, I guess.
I mean, George seems like he was a big 40k player.
Yep.
Erica, any other last minute things on this?
no, I mean, I think for me the biggest thing is the community, and you're going to play people who are absolutely amazing, and you're going to play people who are, those die hard, try hard, and have a mix of experiences. But overall, I would say no matter where you go, the community is probably small enough that you're going to start seeing the same people over and over again and get to have some amazing conversations, catch up from tourney to tourney. That's been an aspect that I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I have. I got into it because it was like, okay, well, I'll paint some plastic, and really playing now, I'm like, okay, I'll build and paint later. I just want to go play. So it's been a really cool experience being part of that community, and that has been the biggest resource in terms of learning and in terms of growing as a player. It's been because the community has been so awesome. So
Yep.
definitely recommend.
Agreed. All right, and then lastly, what's coming up for us? I think next week, Cameron and I, and whoever else is interested, James, I don't know if you're interested as well. Uh, I need to get Colt on here too at some point. I want to go through kind of what the meta is right now for season 2 of the GHB, see what lists are running and doing well, and see maybe some ways you can counter those lists. So I think that's what we're gonna do next week for Tuesday, for Tiny Toys Tuesday, and just kind of have a discussion on where we're at with the meta right now. What can we do that can compete with some of the top builds right now? Those damn Lumineth builds, let me tell you.
Dogs.
Oh my gosh, and dogs and dogs. So
Dogs solve everything.
dogs, yeah.
Or they create problem.
Wow, James gets really 60% right now.
I can see it.
Oh, that makes me sad inside. That means Git's gonna go
Keep
down, or go up
building.
in points.
Keep
Makes me sad.
building.
But yeah, so that's what we got. Again, if you haven't checked out our Gits review or our Basic Chaos review, please go to YouTube and check that out. Obviously, the links are below. It helps the channel grow. Like, subscribe, follow, and comment. I look at the comments and try to interact. If there's something that we can do differently, obviously do that. Other than that, that's all we got. And I will see you guys next Tuesday. Thanks, guys.
I'll see you.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.